Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to present the expectations of this course. It is an introduction course to cybersecurity topics in order to understand also how technology works, in order for you to feel more interested in tempering the technology so that it works in a different way. This is a workshop, so this is not just a speech. I need you to interact, and we're going to try many things, as many as time permits. It is difficult for me to reach you from the stage, but if at certain point you want to come forward, no problem. For those who are on streaming, obviously they can see the course, but they won't be able to interact, which is the most interesting part of the course. I am Raúl Siles. I work at DinoSec. I work on cybersecurity topics for a very long time because I'm quite interested in technology. Before starting, I would like to try for you to practice and to draw conclusions from your technology. So maybe you can use your mobile device, because I am sure you all have either a smartphone or a tablet, so that you can know what to do with these devices. How many of you handle technology? I am sure that probably you won't have a laboratory like the one on the picture, but you like playing with technology. I guess most of you. I guess that's the reason why you're here. Okay, we're gonna try to get to know our mobile devices. For that, I need your interaction so that you can learn things and practice things. Okay, so what we're going to do is block your mobile phone, please, or your mobile device. Do you have any access code in order for the owner to access the device? How many of you have an access code? Who doesn't? No one wants to raise the hand so that we don't point them. Okay, how many of you have a PIN code? So a 4-digit number. How many of you have a pattern? Those who raise your hand, we know you have Android because iOS doesn't have a pattern. A password, I mean alphanumeric password. Less people, but still some of you. How many of you use biometrics? Most of you. Okay. It is fashionable right now. Later we're going to see something quite interesting, which is how to disable in a fast way biometrics and the scenarios where this can be useful. And regarding biometrics, who use digital print and who uses facial recognition? Okay, I understand that no one has iris recognition because some Android devices do have this option. Okay, to unblock the device and see how long it takes you. Let us know, please. 1 second. What did you use? Biometrics? Pattern? The pattern where you swipe your finger doesn't require a long time. Biometrics is even faster, but when you have to enter a password, it gets more complicated, and the user is the one who is upset by entering a complex alphanumeric password. More things. If you block the mobile device again and you see the screen, do you know all the icons in your screen when it is blocked? If you have any comments or thoughts, or you have some icon which you hadn't seen before, you can share this. The idea is for you to see if you know your device in depth. Later, we're going to ask you what you're seeing on the screen, because you have to take into account that anyone can see the blocked screen content. For example, the telephone company, for example, Orange, Movistar, Yoigo, you all see that, right? So someone could use this information to create a fake company's telephone station so that your phone connects to it. Can you see any information on your operating system on that screen? Would you know which ones are Android or iOS? Yeah, the physical hardware, it is easier, right? What version of operating system do you have? Look it up. Maybe we can use Kahoot. We have a couple. In order to make it more interactive, we're going to use Kahoot questionnaires in order to know your operating system version. I understand that all of you are connected to Wi-Fi or to 4G. For those who are at home, you can also participate in a Kahoot online. So we should see the answers you're giving us. We have an audience of teenagers, families, and so on. Depending on how the workshop goes, we will play with this. So I'm gonna introduce Mónica Salas, my colleague at DinoSec. Both of us are going to present this course. I hadn't introduced her before. Due to a reason I will explain later. Okay, so we're going to play Kahoot. So we're going to change the screen so that anyone can see the screen, and so that you have enough time to connect to the internet. And I'm going to show you where to find the version of operating system and the level of patches for Android devices. Okay. What we're going to do is to launch the workshop option. You need to enter kahoot.it. So www.kahoot.it, and you enter this PIN. You choose a nickname and you will be already connected. We are seeing new users who are getting connected. I'm going to give you some time so that you have enough time to connect. And let's see your operating system. You have 60 seconds for each question. Okay, so let's start. It is not about competing, it is to challenge yourselves. So the first one is for Android. So you have 4 options for Android. So where can I see the version of operating system in Android? In settings, operating system, in settings, information of phone, version of Android. Yellow is settings, system update, and green is settings, security, screen block. Okay, since we are in Android, how many people have Android 10? Only one person. 2. 2 people. Okay, not bad. Not bad. Okay, I couldn't see because of the light. Android 10 was launched in August this year, and we are in December. Who has Android 9? Okay, around 10 people or so. Okay, Android 8? Android 7? Android 6? And I guess that the rest of you has iOS. So 23 people chose the correct answer. Verne is the first one who answered, and let's move on to iOS. So where can you find your iOS version? Red option, settings, general, software update. Who has iOS 13? From those who have iOS. 13.2.3, that's the latest version. From Hackathon, I was told that this morning a vulnerability was published, which was compromising hotels in Europe and in Asia in order to attack the guests. So it is better to have the latest version. Who has iOS 12? iOS 11? Those who have older versions from Android, if it's less than Android 10 or iOS 13, you have a device with high number of vulnerabilities. So from the point of view of security, it is your device can be attacked. Okay, this is the podium. And okay, iOS had more time to check where to find this information. Okay, you already know your iOS version. Let's change the screen. From the point of view of security, and we will give you some more examples on it, the version is quite important. Do you have any localization services? Can you see it from your screen block? Who has localization services? Do you know if you can see them from the screen, from the blocked screen? Yes, there are some games which use localization systems such as Pokemon Go, and some other people use these services to take public transport and to look on maps. Could I see if those services are being used? Sometimes, yes, that depends on these settings, but there is an icon which indicates they're being used. Okay, there was a question on disabling biometrics. Do you think of a scenario where you think it is necessary to disable biometrics? No? No one?
Sí, cualquier sitio muy abarrotado de gente, ¿dónde?
A place packed with people.
Si te quitan el dispositivo, ¿te refieres?
If they steal your device, you mean? Imagine your device is blocked, but you can unblock it through biometrics. You need to think of a scenario where you need to disable biometrics for some reason. Have you ever seen videos, the typical video of a boy that attacks his father? This is very Spanish. that attacks his father because he's sleeping, he's taking a nap, and takes his finger to unblock the device. That's not the most critical example. That's the example we had for the family part, but we can adapt it. No, 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 no. The typical example in these cases is in the technical part. For example, I'm flying to the United States, and in the customs, they tell me that I have to unblock the screen. Do you know that the Fifth Amendment doesn't allow you to make you, due to this amendment, you may have forgotten your PIN code, and it is not compulsory for you to do it. But biometrics is not included in the Fifth Amendment. So you may say, I have forgotten my PIN code, but they may ask you to put your finger on the screen. Also, let's think of a boy or a teenager who is in a place where he thinks he's going to be stolen. So if somebody steals his phone and passes it in front of your face, they can unblock it. In those cases, we always say, give your mobile phone away. I mean, your life is more important. But with biometrics, they may not access the mobile phone. Do you know how to disable biometrics without having to access settings? I mean, I'm not talking about unregister your PIN code, but about deleting that option in a fast way. I'm going to show you. I'll show you. It is easier to understand. Okay, here it is. In both Android and iOS devices, you need to have Android 9. If you push the start button for a long time, if you press the button for a long time, then you have several options, which is the lockdown mode. Here you have the references of where to find that mode, which should be activated by default in Android 9 and 10. And basically, when you have this lockdown mode, you cannot use biometrics among other options. So, for example, the first time that you start your phone, then you cannot use biometrics. If you have 5 failed attempts, then you cannot use it. And in iOS, this is associated to emergency services. So depending on using iPhone 7 or higher, is you push the start button, you press the start button 5 times, and then you have this screen. Be careful not to call emergency service, but if this screen appears on your phone, you have already disabled your biometric option. And in newer iPhones, you can also do it with the volume up and down buttons. So the next thing we're going to do, this is the first question in this training course is, what is a hacker? How would you define a hacker?
¿Cuál es el color preferido de los hackers?
What's the favorite color of hackers? Let's start with that easy question.
Necesitamos vuestra colaboración. Es un taller.
We need your collaboration. This is a workshop. We need you to participate. Black, right? Hackers always wear in black. More stereotypes, please. How can you identify a hacker? The hoodie, right? The hood. Why? Why a hood? Because they want to hide themselves, they want to be undercover, but you have also identified them with a hood, so it is not a good strategy. What else? Is it a hacker good or bad? What are his favorite numbers, their favorite numbers? Zeros and ones, binary code, of course. This is a hacker. Hood, black, zeros, ones. There we have the Hollywood stereotypes. Children usually say that they wear a beard. That's why I grew my beard for today, in order to keep on being a hacker. Okay, according to the Spanish Language Association, this is the definition of a hacker. It is a computing pirate, somebody that illegally accesses computing systems in order to obtain secret information. So according to this definition, is it a hacker a good guy or a bad guy? According to what you're used to, yeah, it's a bad guy. And what do media say? A hacker accessed, blah, blah, blah. Last week there were several incidents against Spanish companies. But from cybersecurity, from the cybersecurity community, we protested. We went to talk with the RAE, the Spanish Language Association, in order for them to accept another definition, a person expert in handling computing systems, and so on. Okay, now we're going to need your participation. I may force you to come to the first rows in order to perform a real workshop. In the 13th century, the term hack was already used. I'm going to ask you a question. If you had 6 hours to cut a tree, what would you do?
Que intente no desvelarla al resto. Pero os doy 6 horas, hay que talar un árbol relativamente...
So if you had to chop a thick tree, what would you do?
No me pongo a talar y a ver si cuanto antes empiece, pues antes acabaré.
You wouldn't start.
Preparo mis herramientas.
You would prepare your tools first. So, as Abraham Lincoln said, you would spend hours preparing your tools and then you would start the work. Where does the term hack come from? From the MIT. Who knows MIT? Who likes Marvel? Iron Man, Starks. Studied in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, based in Boston. In the 60s, it had a club of trained replicas, and they had this laboratory. So they invented this term for people who had innovative solutions in order to solve problems with trained replicas, and this was extended to the world of technology, networks, and so on. Just for you to know, as a reference. Okay, there are other hackers. We're going to play a short video. We don't want you to get bored, in order to open your mind regarding the real meaning of hackers. The video doesn't have any sound. Let me play it. Let's change it. Okay. So that you can see other hackers who you may not have expected to see in this workshop.
Y esta es la idea de hackers.
So this is the idea of hackers.
¿Vale? Es alguien que se busca la vida para...
It's somebody who looks for alternatives to get what they want with using their best skills. There are more interesting examples. This is quite interesting. as for the interaction they have with human beings. He checks if the hammock is secure, and he's holding to the bar because safety first. There are some others who, despite their side, managed to do whatever they want, to do some intrusions. Okay, just a sec. The issue of intrusion with logs and protection is quite interesting, and there are some hackers who work in teams, which is another interesting feature, this teamwork, to use different members' skills to achieve a goal. I think the idea is clear.
Si quieres, cuenta Mónica esta parte. Y voy aquí yo. Son retos y desafíos, ¿no?, de los hackers.
Let's talk about challenges that hackers need to face.
¿Qué vas a apagar?
Para. Hacemos esto. Vale, un segundito.
Es que andamos duplicando la salida de los dos equipos.
We're duplicating the outlet of both equipments. Typically, when you are facing a challenge, usually you look for the solution in a different way. You need to extend your analysis ability, which is what any hacker is going to do. Now, the lateral thinking, or the thinking outside the box concept, is quite fashionable. I'm facing a problem, but I need to think of it from another point of view, taking into account data and information. For example, one of the typical challenges, and we encourage you to do it, especially if there are families watching us, try to pass through all of these cube points with 4 or less lines. Yeah, let's say 4 lines without in one movement. So the idea is to make straight lines, 4 straight lines. Okay, so let's try. I'm gonna start here and do 4. Okay, no, the middle one was not completed.
Si alguien tiene la solución, que levante la mano.
If somebody has the solution, please raise your hand and tell me.
¿Cómo va? ¿Alguien la tiene?
How is it going? Does somebody have figured it out?
¿Qué tal si damos una pista?
A ver, nosotros seguimos esperando, porque yo con este tipo de retos, sobre todo si tienes esa mentalidad hacker, no sé, pues te puede venir alguien que te plantea el reto, ¿no? O los niños que son más impacientes.
Children are more impatient. And I usually tend to say, no, do not tell me the solution because I want to solve it. Has somebody figured it out? I think somebody has.
No, intenta decírmelo.
No, tell me what to do. Where shall I start from? From the corner, left corner, to the right corner, then you go, do you go to the left? Yet that way in a diagonal, and then you go down. Exactly, that's it. With any combination, from where I think outside the box, I can go through all the points. Because nobody told you could get out of the box. Typically, people just see a cube. That's why it's difficult to solve it, because that depends on the approach that you're using, because your head is fixed with an idea. That's the first element. Lateral thinking. You need to avoid boundaries. You need to prevent yourself from putting some limits. Okay, let's do it with only 3 straight lines. Okay, you got it.
No, pero tienen que
No
ser sin
puedes-
levantar el...
Without, in just one movement, okay? Without lifting your pen out of the paper, okay? That's the fun part.
Moviéndolo, ¿a qué te refieres?
What do you mean by moving it?
La idea es suponer que esto es un papel,
Let's imagine this is a paper,
entonces da igual en qué posición pongas
and
la
no
hoja,
matter how the paper is, you cannot lift your pen.
Nos decís, si alguien tiene la solución que levante la mano.
If somebody finds the solution, please raise your hand.
La desvelamos, a mí es que me cuesta mucho desvelar.
Do you want us to say the solution? If you want, maybe you can keep on thinking about it, and while we're on the workshop, you can comment on that. Okay? I don't like to share the solution as fast, because I want some one of you to get it.
Hacemos este pequeño cambio. Saltamos ahí, perfecto, y volvemos para acá.
Vale. Bueno, normalmente esta parte de la presentación
Usually, this part of the presentation, we do it in a different way, because usually we have more audience, more people. So usually we unblock someone's phone. Due to the distribution of the room, it has been complicated, but I would like to tell me if you recognize this text. The station Nostradamus, after being destroyed 3 months ago. Why, please, can you tell me why do you know? Why do I know that you have it?
soy capaz de saber esto, ¿no? O sea, tendría que haber utilizado.
If I know this, maybe I used telepathy, and then it stopped sending live signals.
¿Cómo lo sabía?
How could I know it?
En cuenta que los hackers no
Hackers do not take into account that hackers are not always wearing a hoodie, they are not always men. Do you know how I knew that information? Well, do you have cameras? You saw me typing it? No, no cameras. Is it because I have Bluetooth activated? No, it's easier than that. I was behind you, and behind you I also show a joker, a comment saying, why is laughing? Where do I want to get with here? You had a pattern. Since I had the information that I needed, I left before knowing your pattern, but usually I would have noticed your pattern, because visually it is quite easy to read a pattern, and you were not even aware that I was behind you. On many occasions we are not aware of people around us, and no one of the people that I had in front of you, in front of me, didn't even realize that I was there. I didn't wait to see your pattern because we were running out of time, but with numeric passwords and pattern passwords are very easy to identify. He had a very tiny note block where I could read the small characters because I can read very well. I have a good sight, and I could wait for you to have left the room. Our device has our digital life, everything. Everything that you can imagine of is in our devices. And we want to highlight the importance of this, especially for those who are seeing us through streaming. The screen access is one of the main weaknesses of your device. So before entering your PIN code or any confidential information, you need to be sure that no one is around you, that no one can use that information against you, especially with your access method. At this point, people do not even have a security option in mobile devices, which is a problem that comes from the manufacturer, especially Android. When you install the operating system and you do the initial settings, it lets you activate several options that can jeopardize your security.
Sí, puede que por cómo tenemos...
Well, we have here a map of the devices. Well, anyway, I would invite you to deblock your mobile phone, and let's see if you're observing something weird. Well, here we have an Android 10, Android iOS. Well, also I want to mention that one of the things that Android... Okay, let me see, I do not find the pointer. Okay, here it is.
Por ejemplo, una de las cosas importantes que...
So one of the things that the Android blocking screen shows is the type of blocking system that you have. If you have here the lock, it means that your device is locked. So if I'm a hacker or a criminal, in this case, if I'm a criminal now that wants to steal a mobile phone, I'm going to see around to see what I have around and look for security measures. Are you using the smart lock unlocking system in Android? Do you know what smart lock is? Does anyone not know what is it? What it is? Well, I'm going to explain it quite briefly. Smart lock is an automatic unlocking system, and under some circumstances, the device remains unlocked. For example, when there is a Bluetooth device nearby. So if you're in your car and you have coupled your phone with a Bluetooth device, the phone is going to remain unlocked. Or for example, next to a smartwatch, also it allows you to unblock your device when you're closer to your house, because it is considered to be a safe place. We never recommend that type of unlocking systems, especially in your office or any other public area. So the Android locking system, when it is locked with smart lock, changes that symbol and shows a locker surrounded by an unlocking symbol.
En Android sí se puede, es que en iOS yo creo que no.
Vale.
¿Vale?
Como veis,
So as you can see here in this numeric keyboard, when I'm clicking the password, what's happening? What's going on here when I'm typing the password?
¿sabríais cuál es la contraseña de ese
I mean, would you know what's the password of that device? Why?
la estáis viendo?
Because you are seeing that. But in order for this to be more user-friendly, it allows you to see it visually. I mean, now
Está apareciendo rodeada.
the number that Raúl is pressing has a circle around, and this is going to allow people around you to get to know that password. And same things happen with the pattern. The numbers are going to light up. So you don't need to have a very good sight in order to be able to see that. It's very easy to visualize.
No, este
Entonces,
no.
que en función de la versión de... Yo creo que aquí, ¿no? De la versión de Android...
No, tienes que meterte en el propio pin.
¿Vale? Sí. No.
Vale.
¿Vale?
Vale. Entonces, en el pin... Perdón, a ver.
Vale, esto ir buscando en función de la versión de Android.
So depending on your Android version,
Con la diversidad que hay,
the characteristics are different. I mean, the menu is different depending on the version.
Pin como patrón, vais a encontrar un
But
que básicamente lo que
you're going to find an option that says, do you want to see the characters that you are typing, that you are introducing? You can enable or disable that option. For example, in iOS, this is the left screen here. If I go to Touch ID password, how many digits has my password in iOS? 4, right? This is obvious because I just have 4 dots. That's the idea. You can change that. You can change the passcode. You need to introduce the previous password, and you can use a PIN of 6 figures, which would be safer than 4. But you can go to this blue option in order to choose alternative options, such as alphanumeric passwords, 4 digits, 4 digits passwords, or some things like that. This is not offered in Android, but it is offered in iOS. So when the device is locked, I'm going to lock it again. So why can't I lock the phone right now? I mean, you can see that I'm trying to lock it, and I want to unlock it, and it is unlocked directly. There are 2 timers you have to take into account: the inactivity time of the device and when this is going to be applied. For example, here it says required access code in 15 minutes. I'm going to show this in a different way. I'm going to change language to Spanish because you probably have your phones Spanish. So here we had an option that said access code, and it says with which frequency should I require that password. So when I lock the device,
Sí, ya, bueno, no, pero me viene bien porque justo acababa de encontrar que...
sorry, but it seems that we're having a problem with the language change. Well, Android is changing menus continuously, and depending on the version of your device, this is going to be different. So here we had this information in adjustments. Now it is in privacy. Here you have an option which is showing passwords, and it says showing characters briefly when writing them. This option is activated by default in the operating system. So once we have configured the version, we have to make sure that this option is disabled. So when you are you're going to see the difference now.
Aquí estamos. Vale, la diferencia es esta.
So that's the difference.
Vamos a bloquear. Aquí en este caso, además, si estáis viendo, además de que me lo
So here, besides showing that circle, I can even see the figure itself, which is even less safe, less secure. So we have to make sure that this option is disabled because the characters remain on the screen enough time to to see them and to write them down. Same things with the pattern. I can see the pattern, and it's very easy afterwards to remember it. Well, I'm going to show you iOS right now. So here I have my device blocked. How many digits is the code? 4 digits. Normally, an attacker shouldn't be able to know the length of my password. So it's very important to set things up correctly, and not to maybe we can put an alphanumeric password, or a password that does not defines the number of characters that we are going to introduce. So well, now I've changed the password with a pattern. Okay, sorry, but I don't think we are sharing the screen. But well, what happens with that option when we are having a pattern is that when I... Okay, sorry, but... So we would see the pattern, the line of the pattern on the screen. So that's one of the options that you have to disable when you are setting up the device. So you've probably seen this in other environments. The accessing codes are used in many different environments, such as ATMs that say that you have to cover the screen with the keyboard with your hand when you are introducing it. Also, there are some codes that are not recommended. Or, for example, how many of you could tell me what's the code of that door which is locked by that panel? What is it? The code, the password? Well, probably 3, 4, 5, 6. We're not sure. It may be 6, 5, 3, 4 or something like that. But the options are more limited. This is the idea that we want to convey to you with this presentation. Also, sometimes you are publishing personal information in your social media that may be related to your codes, and some people could try to correlate that information. So, we started with this question: do you think that anyone could unlock your device? And it is very important to raise awareness between children and between teenagers, because we need to know how to use this type of devices. We don't need to use a code in these devices that may be known by other people. For example, how many of you have used as a code the birth date of a family member, or a special date? I don't know, the day that you got a dog, information that may be on social media. I mean, you're not going to say my code is the day I got a dog, but maybe you can say I got a dog today. Many of us may have done that. We used to link our codes to something that we can remember easily. Not long ago, well, we are writing security guidelines, and we would recommend using passwords or alphanumeric codes that were complicated against biometrics. But what we've seen is that, taking into account all the configuration and setups of devices, visual passwords are more dangerous. So what we are recommending right now is to establish a password which is very solid, which is robust and is not shared to any other service, but that you don't have to introduce many times during the day. Because once you introduce it, maybe a potential attacker can see some of the figures, some of the characters, some other day he may see the rest of the characters. So same thing that you do not leave the lights on when you're not at home. Try to not avoid locking and unlocking your device continuously. Also try to use a solid password. And also in other situations such as this workshop, you can use biometrics. We didn't recommend biometrics before because there are many methods that have violated these biometrics and these biometric parameters. We wanted this to make a workshop which is interactive, so I want to ask you, do you want to know how someone can try to break into Face ID or this type of biometric methods? Okay, I will show you a couple of videos that explains how these methods have been avoided, and it is not that high-tech method. Let's start with Touch ID, the fingerprint reading system of iOS, and then we will move to Face ID, the latest version, the latest option. If we're talking about movies, about films, how can I get access to a mobile device of a user? How can I get your fingerprint, for example, in order to access your mobile phone? With tape? Well, what happens in movies? For example, in James Bond movies, someone invites the bad guy to a whiskey, and when you are grabbing the glass already has a fingerprint. Where is your fingerprint? In the very same device, because you are touching it all the time. So, well, this attack was done by a group which was associated to CCC, Chaos Computer Club, a very well-known German hackers group. So how long do you think did it take them to break into the Touch ID of iPhone, of the first iPhone 5, I think, 5S? Since the phone was launched. A week, you're saying? Same day? They had to buy it, okay? We need to take that into account. They didn't have it before. But 24 hours. The 19th of September was launched, and the 20th of September they published that video, the video that I'm going to show you. Let's take a look at what they are doing. So they have the phone. In the screen you have the fingerprint. You use a normal HP scanner that many of us may have, and I'm going to scan the screen of the mobile phone in order to get the fingerprint. Another recommendation is that we have to wash our hands frequently in order not to leave many fingerprints in our screen. I don't know if you can watch it properly, but they are going to zoom it. They are grabbing a fingerprint from the screen. They get that part of the image. They invert colors in order for the fingerprint to be more visible. And now they are going to rotate it 180 degrees so that I can use it against the device. They've also inverted colors and 180 degrees rotation. And they are printing this in a paper. And okay, this is the part which may seem more sophisticated. It's true that these people work a lot on biometrics, but this may be more difficult. They use UV lights against PCV, and this is going to give some thickness to the fingerprint. And with that, well, they are going to leave that PCV, that material, to impregnate it to impregnate the fingerprint. They do a solution with acid, and well, in the end, we are creating a mold with that fingerprint. They add graphite in order to harden that mold, and they start creating the replicas, the duplicates of the fingerprint of the victim. And they just do this with glue, white glue that's used to stick furniture. Do not think about any other advanced material. Just with white glue, you put it in the mold, done with PCB and graphite, and once the glue is hard, you just take it from the mold, and this already gives you a duplicate of the fingerprint of the user. And now you're going to see that it works perfectly. This is the victim who's registering for the first time his fingerprint in the iPhone. You have to put it several times in order for all your fingerprint is registered. And then we are going to see how the other user can pretend to be the user with that duplicate of the fingerprint. First time it's not working, but second time it worked. So okay, the user blocks the iPhone, and this user with the new fingerprint uses it and manages to unlock the phone, and now he has taken off the fingerprint, the copy of the fingerprint, in order to show that this was real and that he couldn't access with his normal fingerprint. Now we are going to show you Face ID quite briefly. Face ID, in this case, is a Vietnamese company that's working on biometrics, and they are the ones that have managed to break this Face ID. So what Apple said when implementing Face ID is that they have now a very advanced frontal camera in an iPhone that can detect 30,000 points of your face through infrared rays, and well, you may think that with 30,000 points, the mask that could fake your face should be very realistic. But what you are going to see in this attack is that that's not like that. This is just a minute, this video. The mask that this company created just needs, in order to fake your representation, eyes, nose, and mouth. So 30,000 points end up being limited to these three features. So they are putting the mask in front of the device, and the mask is just representing some of the features of a face. And this is quite interesting. I think that at the end of the video, you can see the mask. So basically, it's just nice nose, eyes, and mouth. And how can you get that features from a person? Well, I'm sure that you've heard in the news that there are more and more public cameras that are recording us with facial recognition, etc. With high-quality pictures, it is very easy to do this 3D representation of a face. Before moving to the next issue, we have all let someone use our device. And for example, parents let their children use their mobile phones for them to watch videos, to entertain themselves. Or an old people maybe comes to you and says, "Can you let me make a phone with your device? I ran out of battery." Do you know how can you let someone use your mobile phone and prevent that person to do something weird or not do anything that you don't want him or her to do? It is like a kiosk mode. It is called kiosk mode. So your device can act as in a kiosk mode. If I want my children to use YouTube, that person will only be able to use YouTube. If a person wants to make a call, that person will only be able to make a call. Well, Android has included this many versions ago. I think it was in version number 5, or version number 6 at least. And iOS has included this in the version number 13. The functionality in Android is called fixing screen. Do you know that functionality? So in adjustments, you move to the security area. Okay, security, fixing screen. As you can see here, the switch is on. And of course, I have, once I stop using that mode, he's going to ask me for my access code. For example, if I have Chrome open and I want someone to use just the navigator, I have to click on the starting button. I have to roll up the starting button, and here in the upper part of the menu, if I click here, okay, if I keep pressed here, I can see a menu that says fixing a screen. So if I click on fixing a screen, I'm going to see here a menu that says the screen is going to be visible until you stop fixing it. So if I try to do something else with the device, going back, clicking on the start button, I will have to press the initial button. I mean, I cannot leave that application. In order to leave that application, I have to click here.
Es que está, un momentín. Como lo tengo ahí cogido.
Sí. Pero la idea es tampoco.
Sí, sí, no, que quiero que lo vean. Quiero que lo vean.
Con atrás e inicio, ahí está.
Okay, now, when I pressed here, I have to introduce again the password in order to unlock the device. iOS number 13 has included this in a kind of weird way because it is part of an accessibility function, and well, it is called guided access here. So guided access is the one that allows you to control the devices or the applications of the device that can be used by someone else. So if we open here the navigator and we click here 3 times, if we sorry. Okay, I didn't activate it. This. Okay. So here, we can set a different code, or we can set a Touch ID. I mean, if you can, you shouldn't use the same password. But here, if I click if I press 3 times the initial button, my screen is fixed and I cannot do anything else. I'm going to stay here in this Safari application, and then you press 3 times again, and I'm going to be requested the code that I've introduced, and now I can use my device. And there is also a restriction function. I don't know if you've heard of it. This option is also very interesting because it allows you to block the type of adjustments available to set up the device. And I don't know why Apple is not talking too much about this feature. It's included in the timing use application, using time application, that lets you know how much time you are spending in front of the screen, how much time you're using on social media. They included this especially for parental control. So if your child has a device, you can say, okay, you cannot be using social media more than 1 hour. And within this functionality, they included that restriction section. So if we activate that switch, we can configure the things that you want to have active in the menu of adjustments. If I don't want to permit code changes, I'm not going to be able to have that option within the adjustment section. We recommend not to allow this type of changes because this is like double authentication process. If I will need to put a second code in order to change my account number or my account username. So that's the idea. There are many options. Sorry, I want to show this very quickly. So if I access my menu here, so if I try to access my settings menu, this doesn't appear anymore because I've disabled the option of changing the code through the settings. So if someone steals my device and has my access code, I'm sure that this person is going to be able to change the fingerprint or things like that because it's not going to be available in the settings menu. And we think that this is very interesting, but Apple is not spreading that option a lot. So for families that are watching the presentation via streaming, we would recommend parents to set this up. Well, in general, this is a recommendation that we think is very useful because if you give your device to a child, the child is not going to be able to change your username, your codes, or things like that. And something else I wanted to mention, well, we didn't want to focus just on the login screen, but it's very important for you to control that your notifications are not active in the login screen, not just because of privacy issues. It's very common to see people having notifications activated in the screen, and it is very easy for anyone to see the messages that you are receiving. So besides privacy, there are many other things that are important. We managed to unlock a device that was protected with an MDM, a company management system, which was very interesting. And we got to unlock it because they had these notifications active, enabled in the locked screen. And also you could see the Wi-Fi networks that were open without unlocking the screen. So with that information, and we could connect to a network, to our own Wi-Fi network with a locked device, and we could start launching attacks. So even though the device was locked from the point of view of internal settings, just by letting this active content open in the locked screen was enough to let us attack that device. Well, this also quite frequent when someone wants to pay something and you can see the code that person is introducing. But well, what we wanted you to explain to you is the logics behind a hacker. They are going to observe and they are going to act with the information that they may obtain. And hackers are investigating on new technologies all the time. They don't even sleep. They don't have time to sleep. And how can you protect against this type of attack? The fact of somebody watching you, There is a traditional option which works very well. Besides trying to cover in the screen, is doing that. Just introducing your code with your head and your hands inside a jumper like this one.
No,
Yo
pasamos.
creo que
Vale.
pasa porque no vamos muy
Bueno,
bien de
era un
tiempo.
poco también.
So, what do you think is safer? A PIN, a pattern, or a password? PIN is just 4 digits. Well, if it's 6, is 1 million. An alphanumeric pattern with capital letters and numbers, etc., implies 281 billion options. And regarding patterns, there are different combinations too. So a pattern with 6 points, 6 dots, is stronger than a 4-digit password. So 10,000 versus 26,000. We would be comparing these technologies. So, and that's it. And regarding passwords, well, we've said enough. What do you think about this? Well, do you want to find out other methods through which we can obtain a password? Are you interested about passwords and codes, or should we change topics? I think this is something that we are all using on daily basis, and it may be interesting. So, okay, you have to try to find out how this was obtained. We will give you later the reference of these videos. How was the code of this victim obtained? I'm going to show you.
Básicamente ese es el supuesto atacante.
So this is the attacker that's going to try to obtain the code of a victim. Well, we cannot listen to what he's saying, but he's saying, okay, I'm going to go inside the store, I'm going to buy a product, and there may be another user which is going to be my victim, and that will be paying with a credit card, and I'm going to try to obtain the PIN code. So this is the victim, the girl that's paying with the credit card, and take a look because he's going to launch the attack. Try to see how he obtained now he already has the PIN code of the victim. What did he do? Okay, let's stop here.
Claro, él está grabando con la cámara, ¿no?
So he's recording with his camera, but the victim is not already there. She's not there anymore. I mean, she was not recording when the victim was clicking, was introducing the PIN code.
No, NFC, en principio normalmente, a ver, los datáfonos tienen NFC para pagos sin contacto, ¿no? Tienen tecnologías inalámbricas de corto alcance, pero claro.
Of course, this payment, what would happen with technology if I could read the text from the previous user? No, of course not. Any other ideas? Heat. He has a phone with a camera that is recording the PIN pad. It is a thermal camera that I can adapt to the iPhone. I think it's $200 or something like that. It is a thermal camera, so it detects temperatures. You know, if somebody has been sitting on the couch, obviously, temperature is going to dissipate through time. So if the person stands, the temperature is there, but 15 minutes later, it is completely dissipated. And that happens on several surfaces, depending on the material. So what happens on a PIN pad, especially those in plastic? The thermal camera detects it. So what is the order of the keys? The last one is the 5, is key number 5. You have an advantage over the buttons on the door, right? Because you see the temperature of the last digit entered. So depending on the service, metal keyboard dissipates faster the heat. How can you protect yourself from this technique.
Adelante. A ver, podrías llevar guantes.
En
exacto,
verano no es un poco
Okay, you could wear gloves, but what if it's summer? I mean, you need gloves that do not convey heat. That's good. You're already thinking as a hacker. How can I prevent the key from getting my heat? Because I'm not going to wear any gloves in summer.
Bueno, exacto, podría pulsar
Exactly, I could push
como
it
teníamos antes en las PDAs, ¿no?
with
lápiz, ¿no? Que otro material y no transfiere ningún calor.
a pen. Okay, yes, because they do not convey heat.
Lo mismo la cajera o el cajero te matan, ¿no? Porque dice, ¿qué haces aquí generando
Maybe
calor?
they kill you,
Pero es una opción.
but that's an option. I wait longer for the heat to dissipate, but I could do the opposite.
Claro, generar mucho
I
calor.
could generate more heat to generate noise. So when I'm going to pay with my card, I touch all the keys. I press only 4, but I touch the other keys in order to generate noise. Yeah, sometimes people looked him with weird faces,
pero no le han robado todavía el
but he hasn't been stolen.
Entonces, pero eso es un poco la idea, ¿no? Que vayáis abriendo la mente en alternativas.
But that's the idea, to thinking out of the box.
que es una cosa en la que insistimos mucho, que ya miréis el mundo de otra
We want you to leave this room with a different mindset. Probably some of these you had never thought of the things we have mentioned here, because
para esto, pero no os abre para pensar
you didn't think out of the box regarding some objects. What else could I do with this? So the mindset of a hacker is, I know this device is for this, so if I get to know the device, I will know better than anyone how to use it. Maybe we can send homework, or maybe we can do a small exercise here. What do you think?
No, es que como están muy dispersos va a ser un poco
It's going to be complicated because you are sitting very far away from each other. Okay, so your device is locked, you have an access code. What can a third party do if they have physical access to your device, even if it's for just a few seconds? So it is your turn. If you came with people you know, because I wouldn't lend my mobile phone to anyone here, but please lend your phone to the person next to me, next to you. You can rotate the phone if you are 3 people. So look at the lock screen of the user. That can be interesting for an attacker.
Hacer autocrítica. Mirad vuestra pantalla, analizarla y ver qué cosas hay.
And if you came on your own, you can do a self-criticism. Camera. This is quite interesting, and this pisses me off. We have been working with iOS and iOS, and Apple and Google didn't delete this function. We are on 2020. Please, is it that difficult to go to settings and have an option so that I can decide if I can use the camera without the block code? What could we do with the camera? You need to start thinking. This idea is used by audit professionals in order to show companies the risk they have according to some vulnerabilities. So you need to think in a malicious way. Is it not to do it illegal, something illegal, because we are doing it with the permission of the company, but it is to show the vulnerability. So what could we do with that camera?
Claro, ¿puedo acceder a las fotos que...
Can I access the existing pictures? Actually, you can't.
Dime de qué depende.
Tell me on what it depends.
Vale, te hago el matiz y me corriges si me equivoco.
Okay, let me Correct me if I'm wrong. What happens today is that if I access your device, I cannot access your previous pictures. However, if I start taking pictures, I can see them, but only those that I took at that moment. It is true that with so many versions of Android and iOS, you can expect anything. So, okay, you cannot access what already exists, but then I can do something, right? I can scan a code, a QR code, because cameras connect directly to a malicious Wi-Fi network, for example. They could scan QR codes with embedded links that lead you to malicious links. Something easier, even if it's not QR codes. That would depend. If I take a picture, do I have any function which enables me to send it through WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, any messaging service, Dropbox, cloud services? Usually the sharing option can be, you need the access code before completing that action. But yes, the option of sharing is available at that point. Something hackers do not like, if you're doing things with a certain style, at the camera level, I mean, denial of services. What could we do?
Claro, ¿cómo? Un vídeo, pongo un vídeo a grabar.
Of course, a video. I can record up to the memory is completely full, and then we'll see what happens. But let's think. I know that an executive manager of a company is going to have a phone call at 12 p.m. and I managed to have his memory phone full, then maybe the phone will reset and restart, and then he won't get that call. What happens if I take a picture of an employer, I take a picture of confidential information, and then I say to my executive managers, ooh, I think this person took a picture in his device. Then they carry out a forensic analysis and they find this confidential information pictures, right? Those are light threats which are not. What else have you noticed in your locked screen? All functionalities, I guess. You're talking about an Android, I guess. Yeah, by default, iOS and Android have a control center activated on the lock screen. Android's name is Fast Settings menu. So from this lock screen, anyone that has access to this, just swiping down, you can have access to activate Wi-Fi, data, Bluetooth, plane mode, flight mode. So what are the risks of that? Have you ever lost the mobile phone and you had to use the remote localization services? What would happen if they could deactivate that localization option? You couldn't find it, so you have to personalize, you have to customize. You have to customize your phone, your settings, in order not to be able to activate those options. Take into account that your mobile device is more important than any other thing, because everything is inside. You need to be sure you are protected. In iOS, the same happens.
De arriba abajo es de abajo arriba, pero fijaros
pues
Por defecto todas
igualmente.
las opciones.
By default, you have all the options. In iOS 13, if you press for a long time, you can handle AirDrop, Bluetooth, and so on. So do you know how to set it up in order to avoid this? Have you ever played with that? Okay, tell us.
Sí.
Sí. Típicamente en Android, hasta versiones anteriores tenías que
Typically, in Android, you had to activate development options and it was more complicated, but in the last versions, it is as easy as press this and that's all.
Vale, de edición, te pide, lógicamente, el
This
código,
edition
eso puede ser,
button.
pero como bien enfatiza Mónica,
But
aquí ya puedo
as
meter
Mónica
aquí
says, I can remove some icons.
cámara,
As we were saying before,
si no recuerdo mal, fue entre Android 7 y 8
I
cuando
think
fue
it was Android 7 and 8 when we started to customize this. I think the option was available, but you had to enable the other options which were not available for the normal user. And the same happens with iOS. You saw that I enabled it. Touch ID code, you enter the code and it was protected. Okay, you go down and then what do we recommend? To disable this control center and the notification center so that no sensitive information can be on the screen. There is also another option from the control center which, let's look for it.
Pues os permite personalizar
Enables you to customize buttons. The problem is that some of them cannot be withdrawn even if you want to, because they are there by default. So we recommend to unblock, to remove the control center, especially for those who have biometrics. When there was no biometrics, the way of not entering a super secure password and wasting time, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to act in a very fast way. But biometrics is there to make things faster.
Os vamos a hacer una pregunta al respecto. Bueno, vamos a irnos saltando por un poco tiempo, ¿no? Y cosas que os queríamos contar. Vamos a ir avanzando en algunas cosas. Esto es todo lo que hemos visto.
Okay, let's keep on advancing that. We saw something such as camera, the control center, the disabling biometrics. So now as an exercise, as homework, protect yourselves. You need to devote some time in the settings menu in order to make your access more secure. There are other vulnerabilities. We don't want to keep on going on this direction. Now at the end, we will give you some links. Do you know what this is?
Sí. Cableada, muy bien, en Estocolmo, efectivamente. ¿Vale? Y así es como cablearon las líneas desde las casas.
Yes, that's what they did in Stockholm, from a tower which was covering the sky due to the thousands of cables. This is we cannot imagine that with wireless technologies. Can you see if you have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth activated? If usually it is easy, right? You go to settings and then there is a communication or network option and you can access that. If you want, we can start with Bluetooth and then we move on to Wi-Fi. You have, how is it? Can you see other devices? Tell us, what do you see?
¿Vais a ajustes? ¿Teníais Bluetooth habilitado? Algunos sí, otros no. Hoy en día, además, con la idea de relojes inteligentes y este tipo de cosas.
Do you have it activated? It is more enabled.
Si entráis ahí ajustes y demás, ¿qué ha ocurrido?
If you go to settings, what happened?
Javi tiene un MI5, ¿verdad?
Javi has an
Y hay un Redmi también en la
MI5,
sala.
and there is another one on the room, so I can see your devices.
¿Quién es Javi?
Who is Javi?
Del MI5. Vale. ¿Vale? Pues lo que ocurre es que tú puedes lanzar con un dispositivo USB.
With an
desde, por ejemplo,
USB
Linux,
device from
El
Linux.
dispositivo USB es esto.
Look at
este
this
dispositivo
device.
rojo
Is
tiene
this
un
red
coste
device,
de
USB stick,
30 euros,
that
¿vale?
costs
Con
around 30
antenas
euros
externas
with
y
external
bastante alcance.
Y
antennas?
que en este caso porque es rojo, pero si fuera negro
eh,
habría pasado bastante
In this
desapercibido.
case, it's red, but if
Lo
it
que te
were
permite
black,
es
you
hacer
wouldn't have
escaneos de
even
Bluetooth
noticed it.
cuando
So
los
you
dispositivos
can
están
scan
visibles.
Bluetooth when
Esto es algo bastante curioso,
devices are
porque a día de
available,
hoy,
are
tanto
visible.
Android como
This
iOS,
is quite
solo
curious
por el
because
hecho de
today,
entrar en la pantalla de Bluetooth,
only by
empieza a ponerse visible.
accessing
Para que
the
tú descubras a
Bluetooth
otros, pero otros te descubran a ti.
button,
¿Vale? Y con
it
eso ya hay
starts to be
bastantes
visible
ataques
in
porque
order to
ya
discover
tenemos las
other
direcciones,
devices,
podemos
but
entrar en
for
los
other
dispositivos,
devices
ver
to
todos los detalles y demás,
discover
¿vale?
your
En este caso
device.
tenemos no mucha
We
actividad
do
de
not
Bluetooth,
have
entonces
much
hemos visto un
activity,
par
much
de
Bluetooth
dispositivos,
activity,
¿vale?
only 2
¿Qué
devices.
tal con Wi-Fi?
What about
¿Tenéis
Wi-Fi?
habilitado Wi-Fi?
Do you have Wi-Fi activated?
Mi pregunta sería,
My
¿por
question
qué vais
is,
con la Wi-Fi habilitada por la
why
vida?
is Wi-Fi activated in
En
your
este caso,
daily
porque a lo
lives?
mejor estáis haciendo uso de una
Okay,
red wifi aquí,
maybe
¿no?
now
¿Qué
you're
ocurre cuando
using
dejéis de
a
verificar?
Wi-Fi network, but
¿Apagáis la
what
Wi-Fi?
happens when you leave the
Siempre,
room?
¿os
Do
acordáis
you
siempre al
always
salir de casa, de la
remember
oficina? Claro,
to
el
switch it
problema es que es
off
muy
when
difícil.
leaving the room,
¿Vale?
leaving the
¿Y qué ha
house,
ocurrido
leaving
en
the
la Wi-Fi? Pues ha
office?
ocurrido lo siguiente,
Of
mientras
course
íbamos
not, it
teniendo
is
la
quite
charla,
difficult to always
pues
remember
podemos a lo
that.
mejor decir
So
que
while
que me imagino que será Laura, ¿no? Pues tiene un
while
MI9,
we were
o se ha
giving
conectado
this
alguien al
speech,
MI9 de Laura, ¿no?
so we
O
saw
hay
Lau,
gente de la
which
universidad
we
porque
guess
se conectan a EduRoam, ¿no?
there are people
O
from
a
the
lo mejor de
university,
Castillo 5G os suena
or
alguno,
maybe Castillo
o más cosas,
5G
¿no?
rings a
O
bell
de
for
Guión, o el
someone,
iPhone de Yolanda, que
or
está por aquí
Yolanda's
también, o ha estado,
iPhone, or
¿vale?
has been
El iPhone de
here.
Yolanda, Yolanda ha entrado hace
Yolanda
poco, ¿no? Porque antes no estaba.
accessed
El iPhone de Yolanda está muy activo.
sometime, and it is quite active.
Yolanda.
Yolanda's phone is quite active.
Vale, la red Movistar A758 a
Movistar
lo mejor os suena porque es la red del caso de
A7518, because maybe it's somebody's
familiar, NFB
home
también puede que os
network,
suene.
Vete marcando en pantalla.
Sí, Valecorp,
Valecord,
Valecorp,
Spincat,
¿vale? Como posibles redes wifi.
as possible
Ha
Wi-Fi
habido
networks.
antes algunas interesantes,
Before
¿no? Lógicamente
there
hay
were
wifi
some
supercam.
interesting
Os enseño
ones.
por aquí alguna
I'm gonna show
interesante, ¿no?
you
La de Oh My Web, Oh My Web
on my
externa,
web,
Web
on my web
Azul. A
external,
veces aquí te encuentras cosas que
Web
mejor no
Azul.
encuentras,
It is
¿vale?
better not to find some networks.
¿Qué ocurre con todo esto?
What
Pues
happens with all of
básicamente
this?
que vuestros
Basically, your
dispositivos, ¿vale?
devices,
Hay otra por aquí, Valecorp,
Valecorp,
a lo mejor es una web, o sea, una wifi corporativa de alguna empresa.
maybe it is a
Básicamente,
corporate
lo único que
network
hemos hecho
from
es
a
coger
company.
una
Basically, what they
interfaz
did
wifi,
was
¿no?
to
Con su
take a
antena,
Wi-Fi interface with an
adaptador,
antenna and an
conectarlo,
adapter.
empezar a
We
capturar el
connected
tráfico
it,
de vuestros
and we
dispositivos
were
que están
scanning the
deseosos
traffic
de
of
conectarse a
your
las redes wifi
devices,
que conocéis.
which are willing to
Lo que se conoce
connect
como
to
la
familiar
la Preferred Network List, la lista
networks.
de redes
This is
preferidas
the
de vuestro dispositivo ha ido almacenando
VPN,
desde el primer día
VPL,
que lo
the
empezáis
list
a
of
usar
favorite
en todas las
networks,
redes que os habéis ido conectando,
which
¿vale?
registers
Y de
all
vez
the
en cuando
networks
va buscando
to
esa red.
which your
Y eso
device
tiene
has
muchas
been
implicaciones,
connected.
porque un
And that
atacante
has many
ahora quiere
implications
saber
because
dónde frecuentáis,
an attacker that
probablemente
wants
también,
to see
una
where
vez más, la
you
gente que pueda
are,
tener niños,
and
pues
I'm
pueden saber,
addressing again
por
those
dónde va, si
families
se
with
conecta a
children.
una red de un
They
instituto,
can know where
y sacar
that
bastante
person
información
is,
y triangular
because if
incluso,
they
porque hoy en día, de
are
hecho, hay
connected
mapas de
to
redes wifi por
a
ahí que se
Wi-Fi
pueden
network from a
consultar.
school, they know where
Si se
they
puede,
are,
sabes que
and
estás en un
they
sitio que no
can
deberías
know
haber estado.
if you have
Entonces,
been
toda
in
esa
a place where
información,
you
si
shouldn't
todos sois
have
conscientes que
been.
vuestro
All
dispositivo
that
la está revelando
information
por el mero hecho
is
de
being
desplazarse con la wifi activa y
revealed
entrar en un rango
by
donde se puede
your
capturar.
device
¿Alguien sabe cómo puede
when
evitar esto?
you are not, when
Aparte de
you
apagando el internet,
have
como si no os
Wi-Fi
interesa que se
activated.
sepa, pues si habéis estado en una red wifi determinada y demás,
How,
¿cómo lo podéis
how
hacer?
can you prevent this apart
Lo
from
hacéis habitualmente, movéis la red wifi cuando
deactivating
ya
deactivating the Wi-Fi, deleting the network, right? So let's imagine. Here we had CyberCamp 2019. When tomorrow is over, I can delete it, and you should delete it. The office network, I don't want to delete it all the time, right? Because I'm going there every day. So as Mónica was saying, I remember a case where we did an intrusion testing. We localized an executive manager in Holland. It was due to an audit, due to a unique network name, which was localized in a specific point of the Earth. Marime was here with her iPhone, which was quite active. NBEX also.
Nunca configuréis.
So never set Wi-Fi as hidden networks because your Wi-Fi needs to look for them and reveal information. The level of security of a hidden Wi-Fi is very, very low, so it's not worth it. And try to remember to delete all of them to which you do not have to connect anymore. The risk is when an attacker creates a Wi-Fi network in order to emulate your familiar network. What happens if now I take the NBEX networks and I open an access point and name it NBEX? Then you will want to connect and you will be attacked, even if the network has a password, in order to get the password. If the network is open, the device has connected and shares the same network with the attacker. And when that happens, there is a man-in-the-middle attack. You are in the middle and you can handle the traffic between both devices.
Lo que vamos a hacer es un poco, ya cerrando algunas conclusiones, ¿no? Básicamente, por resumir, que hemos visto la parte inalámbrica, la parte de gestión.
Since we are running out of time and we have already seen the most important points, let's talk about another thing. We expected to have younger people who are not familiar with older devices, but you need to be familiar with what your device has. Can you remember all those gadgets that we used to have, like VHS, voice recorders, the most traditional GPS, compasses, radios, clocks, everything inside your smartphone? I do not understand if it is so useful to have a smart container.
¿Vale? Con lo cual la gente la compra y se utiliza.
I don't know if it's that useful, but people, when doing the groceries, use their smartphone in order to know if they have enough eggs. And what is this? This is a raspberry. I am sure you have one of them at home, but be careful, because NASA was attacked because they had a lost Raspberry Pi. It wasn't in their stock and they stole their credentials. In June 2019, it was published that somebody accessed the laboratory of NASA. But the attack happened from April 2018, so that person was there for over a year and extracted confidential documents of missions to Mars, and they even accessed the Deep Space Network. So with very high confidential information about black holes. So an institution such as NASA got attacked. There was a person named Jonathan James who hacked NASA and the Pentagon and ended up in prison. And there is a popular cyber scammer in Spain who has been priority one for police for years, and now he has already been arrested. Do not end up in prison. You can play with it, you can vulnerate it, but without crossing any illegal lines. You need to do it with your own technology and with the permission. And if there are children doing, the only difference between a normal digital criminal and a normal criminal is that probably the digital criminal will be able to obtain a job after prison. That's the only difference. Both are criminals. So we should get to know technology from the beginning. We cannot do the ostrich approach of avoiding technology. We need to get to know it, but we need to protect also against it. We need to consume it with responsibility. Maybe there will be some campaigns telling you protect your devices. There are some cases that isolate your device from GPS, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5G, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and there are also USB condoms to isolate data connection and only give you electricity. That's important when using any plug to charge your battery, but you do not know if behind the wall there is a computer getting your data. And in Asia, for example, children come already with a Wi-Fi network. You don't need to use the tin foil. The idea is to learn from technology, and as references, this is a gift for you. This is a link so that in which you will find more references or music. I am sure you all have WhatsApp, so you have guidelines in order to protect WhatsApp. How can I verify that a contact is who they say they are, and so on. And that's all. Thank you very much for having come here. And I hope this workshop has been useful for you. Do you have any question? Thank you very much. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Ahí, bien. ¿Alguien lo tiene, ha pensado?
Okay, yeah, the exercise. Did someone solve it?
Ahí estamos. Muy bien. Se pueden hacer 3 rayas muy finitas y alargadas para que...
You can do 3 very thin straight lines that crosses all the points. Would it be easier to solve it?
Exactamente, esa es la idea que quería.
Exactly, that's what we wanted. What happens if I use a very thick pen and with only one line I can do it? Yeah, that's good. Keep on thinking out of the box, keep on getting to know technology, and if you are interested, we are collaborating with the Hackathon collaboration, so we encourage you to see their projects because it is very interesting. Tomorrow they are going to have their presentations on this auditorium from 12 to 3 p.m. So if you are here, we encourage you to come here and get to know people with more experience and willingness to contribute to the society. Any other question? It was good for you to remember. Perfect, then thank you very much. Goodbye.